Okay, so we're continuing our refactoring of this movie project, focusing on the customer class. We've put together all our tests, and now we're going to get into cleaning up the code a little bit so we can see what's going on. And again, we're using this example from this book, from Martin Fowler's book on refactoring, improving the design of existing code, because it's designed specifically to kind of illustrate the kind of thing that we want to be able to do with the killer game programming code, so that to make it more understandable and more reusable. Okay, and I think we've kind of seen so far already, even in just developing the test, that you really need it helps you develop your understanding of what's going on with the code. But the thing we're going to do next, like I said, we're going to do some rewriting. So, and the most obvious candidate in these classes is this ugly statement method. And because it's really long, and it's kind of, it's doing more than one thing in a way. I mean, there are definitely tasks that we can pull out of it. So, so let's say, for example, you were given the task as a programmer of, being able to generate like raw string statements like this. So we know that the output of this method is a string that looks kind of like this one, depending on what the movies and customers are and all that. Let's say you wanted to also be able to produce statements in HTML, a string of HTML. But you want to have minimum redundancy. Well, what you would do is, like we did already, is set up a set of tests so that you know that as you make changes, you're not breaking things. And then you want to go in and start seeing how you can pull out some of the functionality. Okay, so for example, we have this switch statement, and it says right here nicely in the comment, it says determine amounts for each line, and actually for each line of the statement, meaning for, Alex Cross is going to be $21. So it's figuring out, basically it's figuring out the amount for each rental, right? So each time you go through this switch, what's happening is this while rentals has more elements, and then you do this rentals next element, that pulls the next element out of the collection of rentals. Okay, so you're taking each one of these rentals and checking to see, according to its price code, how much, and other information specific to that rental, how much you should be paying for that particular rental. Okay, so that's all this does is determine amounts. Okay, so this switch statement then is a good candidate for a separate method. Okay, so we can pull this out as a separate method. Now, one thing to consider, NetBeans has some nice built-in tools, which I'm going to show you in a minute, for helping you with your refactoring. But I just want to mention, because sometimes you do need to do manual refactoring, and I'm going to do some in these videos, and sometimes the stuff off of the menu works great. But if you have an understanding of what you're looking for, it's helpful, even if you're doing, using the Automagic stuff that they have built into NetBeans. So what we want to consider here is, in this fragment that's highlighted here, we want to look for any variables that are local, that are going to be that are local in scope to this section right here. So and what I mean by that is if you look right just above here, we have the double variable, this amount, and we also have each in here, which is local. It's inside this while block. So it's kind of, it's basically local to here. And if you look inside of this blue rectangle that I highlighted, every occurrence of each, if you look at every occurrence of each, we're really just reading values. So we want to see, we're just getting the price code, getting the days rented. We're not setting or changing anything related to the to that rental object. We're just reading information about the rental in order to figure out the amount. The thing that gets changed is the amount here. So this amount, we add things to it. Now notice though that every time through the while loop it gets reset to 0. Okay, so we're using the switch statement to actually calculate what we want this amount to be for each time through the loop, okay, for each of the rentals. So we're calculating an amount to correspond to each rental, okay. So what we can do then is, for our method that we're going to create, we can just return this amount, and so we can basically pass in each to our method and return this amount, okay? So so let me just show you then the nice tool that NetBeans has built in. If we go into refactor, we can say introduce method, and let's make a method, let's call it, say, amount4, and that can be private, because we don't need, we're introducing it just as a helper function for inside this class. Nobody outside this class needs to know about it. So I'm going to make the access private, click OK, and let's see what happened. Where did it? And then we have this amount4 method that was created. Now notice it's created with, you know, it automatically takes whatever local variables there were and makes them parameters, okay? So we don't need this amount, because like we said, that gets calculated every time through. And it was really clever because it figured out that since we don't make any changes to each, it can just return this amount. I think that's pretty clever. But what we can do is, in our amount4, we can, I'm just going to copy this, because we can just have this amount4 be a local variable in here, and that's the thing that we can return, because remember, we saw each time through the loop we were resetting it to 0 anyway. So I'm going to just go ahead and stick it in here. Then that way I don't need this parameter. So again, you know, cutting down on parameters that you don't need is a nice way to clean up code too. It makes things easier to follow and simpler, and reduces chances of defects. How do we want to do that up here? Then we can just, say our rental each, and this amount is going to equal that now. Okay, so the thing that we had to pay attention to was that we were adding in this local variable here, got it out of the parameter, and that we're returning this amount. Okay, so that should still work. Let's see, Oh, okay, and NetBeans is telling us this is the assigned value is never used. Do we care? Let's see if there's any special. There's no special associated refactoring with that, so I'm just going to leave that alone. We could have just as easily. We could also just get rid of the 0 equals 0 there. And that seems to make NetBeans happy, so I'll do that. And that's safe to do because we're setting this amount each time inside our loop. So, I mean, it's kind of a matter of your personal style if you wanted to start that at 0 or not. But I'll take it out because it makes the little light bulb go away. So now what we can do is we can run our test again. Let's see. Let me flip over to customer test, make sure that's the one I'm running. I'm going to run my tests again. Make sure they all pass. Yes, everything still passes, okay? So that means that, because remember we have this, we are testing statements still. That means that I didn't break anything. So that's our first step in changing our code and making it a little cleaner and a little bit more readable. And again, like I said, in general, just making your method shorter makes them readable. But we're gonna do some more work and clean it up a little more in the next video.